The farming minister, who quit earlier this week over Brexit negotiations, said the EU can smell fear from the UK side, meaning it will never feel enough pressure to make concessions appropriate for Brexiteers. He spoke as the EU's chief negotiator. Michel Barnier warned Britain EU impatience over Brexit is palpable. But the Brussels chief revealed the EU is ready to provide further guarantees to Britain on the Northern Ireland backstop. The backstop, an insurance mechanism to prevent a hard Irish border, has been rejected by the DUP's 10 MPs and a large number of Mrs May's Conservative Party. Michel Barnier warned Theresa May EU impatience is palpable. Image Getty. In a revealing interview with German newspaper Die Welt, Mr Barnier insisted EU and UK relations would inevitably worsen when Britain left the EU. Meanwhile, the US ambassador to Britain has branded the EU at Museum of Agriculture as he pushes for a bumper post-Brexit transatlantic trade deal with the UK. Woody Johnson attacked Brussels' farming methods and rejected fears over US chlorine-washed chicken and hormone-fed beef as myths. It comes after Donald Trump's administration published demands for a post-Brexit deal, including scrapping unwanted barriers on food and drink imports. Mr. Johnson said, in the United States, we look at the bigger picture. It is not sustainable for the whole world to follow the EU's Museum of Agriculture approach. We have to look to the future of farming, not just the past. Mr. Johnson's EU rebuke comes as the president of Slovenia stated he believed some EU countries would welcome a Brexit delay. Theresa May has promised MPs a chance to delay the date Britain leaves the EU if her deal is rejected. A second time in the Commons on March 12, President Barnier said, I think that nobody wants to see a hard Brexit in a chaotic way. Rayner says US chlorine-washed chicken is risky stuff. Image Getty. 3:38 p.m. update. Rayner says, thought of US post-Brexit chlorinated chicken makes me sick. A food writer Rayner has hit back at US ambassador to Britain Woody Johnson's claim that fears over a post-Brexit influx of US chlorine-washed chicken and hormone beef are myths. Mr. Johnson insisted the inflammatory and misleading terms were a smear campaign from people with their own protectionist agenda, as it lashed out at EU farming practices. But Mr. Rayner, the Observer's restaurant critic, said importing chlorine-washed chicken post-Brexit makes me sick in so many bloody ways. Mr. Rayner tweeted, we shouldn't be surprised the US ambassador at Woody Johnson wants the UK to embrace chlorine-washed chicken as part of a post-Brexit FTA, but we should tell him where he can stick it, because, contrary to what he says, it's risky stuff. We know that Brexit is all downsides. It is often called an act of national self-harm, but letting in chlorine-washed chicken as Woody demands would be literally harmful to the health of the nation. EU chief negotiator Michel Barnier has indicated Brussels may give further guarantees on backstop. Image Getty. 2:22 p.m. update. Barnier says EU patience with UK is wearing thin. The EU's chief negotiator Michel Barnier offered Theresa May a Brexit olive branch by insisting the EU could offer guarantees over the Northern Ireland backstop. But Mr. Barnier also told Die Welt that the EU impatience over Brexit was palpable. He said, we know that there are misgivings in Britain that the backstop could keep Britain forever connected to the EU. This is not the case. And we are ready to give further guarantees, assurances and clarifications that the backstop should only be temporary. He added, we will not allow a time limit or a one-sided exit right. What can exist is the commitment to limit the backstop through an agreement on the future relationship. SNP leader Nicola Sturgeon won't rule out Labour Brexit alliance. Image Getty. 1:10 p.m. update. SNP's Sturgeon warns of possible Brexit deal with Labour's NP leader Nicola Sturgeon has refused to rule out a Brexit coalition with Labour. Scotland's First Minister said her party is ready to work with other parties to challenge Theresa May's government over its damaging Brexit strategy. Ms. Sturgeon again called on the Prime Minister to call a second referendum on Britain leaving the EU. She said, we will be ready to contest any general election if one is called, and we would also be ready to work with other parties to oppose the Conservatives. hugely damaging Brexit proposals, reiterating her support for a second referendum on Scottish independence, Ms Sturgeon said. Amid the chaos and confusion of Brexit, I think it is clearer than ever that Scotland's interests are not being served by a Westminster system that too often treats Scotland as an afterthought. Tory ministers poised to join rebel independent group. Pictured image PA 11:48 AM update. Ministers poised to quit Tories and join independent group. A senior government minister has declared support for the rebel independent group, paving the way for more possible Conservative resignations. The unnamed Conservative told a member of the Remain backing group they agreed with everything you have done, the Telegraph claims. And more ministers are on the brink of abandoning the Tories to team up with the independent group as Theresa May's Brexit crisis deepens. Last week, Tory MPs Anna Soubry, Sarah Wollaston and Heidi Allen quit the party over its Brexit direction. They joined 8 Labour MPs who resigned the day before. 3 more Conservatives, Dame Caroline Spelman, Dominic Grieve and Mark Pawsey, are facing motions of no confidence over the next 4 weeks. George Eustace calls on Britain to show courage as EU smells fear over Brexit. Image Getty 11:26 AM. Update. Eustace claims EU can't smell fear from UK. The EU can't smell fear from Britain in Brexit negotiations, claimed George Eustace, who quit as Environment Minister on Friday. He indicated Theresa May should walk away from talks on amending her withdrawal agreement. Mr Eustace resigned following Mrs May's decision to allow MPs a vote that could delay Brexit. Writing in the Daily Telegraph, he warned Britain had spent decades slavishly following EU law, but must now show courage. Mr Eustace said, "The reason the EU have not acted in good faith during these negotiations is that they do not think we are serious about leaving, or at least they think we are too scared to leave without a deal. They can smell fear. They see in the body language of our negotiators a sense that we will only ever do what the EU grants us permission to do. They see us continuing to respect the trite and ostensible legal impediments and procedures even though we are leaving. Britain should follow Norway's ability to master the EU and walk out of the room in negotiations," he claimed. URG Deputy Steve Baker believes Group's MPs would back Brady Amendment Brexit deal. Image Getty 11 AM update. ERGs. Baker says overwhelming number of Group's MPs would vote for Brady Amendment Brexit deal. URG Deputy Leader Steve Baker insisted the Eurosceptic Group's MPs will vote for a Brexit deal if Attorney General Geoffrey Cox can win EU concessions on the Brady Amendment. Sir Graham Brady, head of backbench Conservative group the 1922 committee, wants the Irish backstop replaced by alternative arrangements to avoid a hard border, but his amendment would support the rest of their May's deal. Last night, arch-Eurosceptic Mr Baker was adamant the Brady Amendment is now the Brexit touchstone. He said, if Cox achieves what the Brady Amendment set out to achieve, then an overwhelming number of my colleagues will vote for it. DUP Deputy Nigel Dodds must back amended deal, says URG source. Image Getty 10:45 AM update. DUP backing for amended Brexit deal crucial, say ERG DUP Deputy Leader Nigel Dodds. Backing for an amended Brexit deal is absolutely crucial, an URG insider believes. Mr Dodds is one of 8 star lawyers picked to analyse any concessions Attorney General Geoffrey Cox wins from the EU before the March 12 Commons Brexit vote. And if the Northern Ireland MP gives Mr Cox's plan the thumbs up, the rebel European research groups URG will also approve, a Tory source told the Telegraph. MPs in the URG are all waiting to see what Dodds says. The source said, if the DUP is happy with the amended withdrawal agreement, then they'll be happy. An URG insider said, if Dodds gives assent, it will help to move the vast majority of those who voted against the withdrawal agreement last time. Slovenia's President Borut Pahor gives green light to short Brexit delay. Image Getty 10:15 AM update. Slovenia President rejects hard Brexit and urges delays. President of Slovenia believes the EU could approve a Brexit delay. Borut Pahor insisted countries in the single bloc are ready to move back Britain's leaving date if Theresa May can present a plan with clarity and consensus. It comes as the EU's chief negotiator Michel Barnier insisted the EU is on the brink of conceding to Mrs May's demands on the Northern Ireland backstop. Mr Barnier said, "I think Slovenia and a lot of other countries would say yes. I think that nobody wants to see a hard Brexit in a chaotic way." He backed a compromise on the Irish backstop, but warned Slovenia would reject any deal Ireland did not agree with. US Ambassador Woody Johnson is backing a trade deal with the UK post-Brexit. Image Getty. 9:51 AM update. Trump's man in Britain flames EU and US farming smear campaign. US Ambassador to Britain Woody Johnson lashed out at EU farming methods and called on Britain to lead a post-Brexit agricultural revolution, with the US. Donald Trump's man in London dismissed fears over US livestock as a smear campaign, and labelled the EU a museum of agriculture. Mr Johnson told the Daily Telegraph, "You have been presented with a false choice. Either stick with EU directives, or find yourselves flooded with American food of the lowest quality. Inflammatory and misleading terms like chlorinated chicken and hormone beef are deployed to cast American farming in the worst possible light. It is time the myths are called out for what they really are, a smear campaign from people with their own protectionist agenda." He added, "It would be a genuine missed opportunity to buy into the idea that the EU's traditionalist approach to agriculture is Britain's only option for a quality and efficient agriculture sector moving forward. You now have the freedom to make your own choices about the way you farm and fish, the products you import, and the technology you utilize." Britain exports around £18 billion of food and drink annually, with £9.4 billion to the EU and £1.9 billion to the US.